Radio Bypass, bringing you rock and roll music that deserves to be heard. Discover new bands. Here's some old favorites on Radio Bypass.
Hey, Radio Bypass. The band Babylon A.D. has just released a new album. And joining us today is lead vocalist Derek Davis. Derek, thanks for coming by Radio Bypass.
Well, thank you for having me on.
It's a pleasure. So Babylon A.D., brand new record. Rome wasn't built in a day, and I imagine this album wasn't either. But what can you tell us about the new record?
It took a while to make, hence the name. Rome wasn't built in a day. We went through a lot of, the whole COVID thing kind of set us back for a while. We had the album out in 2017, Revelation Highway on Frontiers Records. So actually it was a six-year journey just to get to here, just to get it released. And so it was a lot of work, but I think it paid off in the end.
And I think last year, though, you did have something come out, a live record came last year. So you have been kind of active in 23 and 24.
Well, yeah. So what we did last year when we released the last album was the live album. We put that out just to let everybody know that we were still here, that we were still on the scene, and kind of, it was like the priming the pump for this album. And a lot of interviews that I did and things like that were talking about get ready for the next album, which wasn't built in a day. So we felt like we needed, since we've been away for so long, that we had to kind of, like I said, prime the pumps to get everybody knowing that we were going to be making a new record.
That makes sense. The first single from Rome Wasn't Built in a Day was Wrecking Machine. Was released, and that album, or that song, I should say, I never do videos before I hear a song, because I always like to hear the song first and decide how does it speak to me? What does it mean? Yeah. I don't want any concepts or anything. I want to know how it speaks to me. And then I like to go watch the video. And man, what a great video you guys made for that.
Thank you. Yeah, I thought that the video treatment matched the song pretty much exactly. It's all about AI, how it's going to take over the world, this and that. And when I was writing the lyrics for the song, originally I thought, this young girl who's just a destructive type of personality person, and all of a sudden I started thinking about robots, all because all I hear on TV every day is AI is going to take over. AI is going to take over. So it was pretty easy for me to slip that idea into a destructive chick, into a AI robot that, pretty much destroys the world and her life and her family and everything. So
right.
Yeah, it was really fun writing that song. And I think the concept for the video just, like you said, kind of nailed it. Kind of, when you hear the song and you see the video together, it really connects what the song is about,
Yes, it does. And that's part of what I wanted to ask you. Was the concept for that video yours? Did you work with a director? How did that, who came up with that whole idea?
I did. I just, as I was writing the song, the imagery was in my head the whole time. And, so when I got done with the song, I had the guys come over and we set up my garage. It's crazy, but nowadays you can do a lot of stuff if you just have like a green background. So I set that up with the guys in the garage. They're like, is this going to work? I said, don't worry, it's going to work. You guys just let's rock out, and then I'll put the imagery in and it'll work. You'll see. And because I've been doing videos for about 10 years too. So
gotcha.
So a lot of it is like when I write songs nowadays, I kind of think of the visual aspect at the same time. Always, they kind of go hand in hand with me now, instead of just writing a song with the lyrics and then hoping that people like the song. I kind of say, if I don't have a video with this song, you know what I mean? I need to have the pictures in people's head, what I'm trying to say,
Right. When songs come to you, though, like, a lot of times, you have a lyric idea or you have a lick, things like that. When what you're saying, it sounds to me like when you're thinking of a song, you're already putting a lot together. Yes? No?
The whole time. That's what I'm thinking of. I'm thinking of visual, how this is going to work visually. You know, I can hear a song on the radio, and then it's and if there's no video to it, you know, or an old song on the radio or whatever, you know, back in the day, and then you put your own thoughts of what it is and everything. But when I listen to songs, I've always, since I was a kid, I think because I love movies. I always have. People think I'm addicted to movies, which I probably am. I go to the movies still 2-3 times a week, all by myself, which
Wow.
a lot of people think I'm freaking crazy.
That's dedication.
Yeah. But I get a lot of ideas from that. And I kind of always think, like, every song that I write, I always want a video to it or a cinematic experience with it. I have so many songs that when I write, I think of that, but I don't have enough time to put the video to the music. You know what I mean? I don't have enough time because I'm working on another song or, you know, this or that. So it's, if you put 10 songs out on a record, you might only have time to do the visuals for maybe 3 or 4 songs. Before the next record, making the next songs, writing the next songs. So then you got to prioritize, and I do anyways, what songs do I want the visuals to go with? You know? Yeah.
Yeah, for sure. And in the old days, back when Babylon A.D.'s first record would have come out back in the 80s, it was also an expense to be considered too for making a video. So you certainly couldn't do an album's worth of videos back then.
Put it this way, our first 2 videos cost $100,000 a piece. Can you imagine that?
I believe it.
$100,000.
I believe it. It's kind of how it was back then.
4-minute video, $100,000. It goes wild for Orion Pictures. They spent $75,000, which is a low budget.
Right.
That was a low budget. But
was that the one with Sam Kinison in it? You had Sam Kinison in a video back then.
No, Sam Kinison was on the record, but they would not put him in the movie because he was swearing.
Oh, I thought he was in the video.
Oh, he was not in the movie, and he was not in the soundtrack that we did for the album. They took him out, and it was just a drum beat the whole time. And it was so disappointing for the band, you know, because we're watching RoboCop and we're thinking Sam Kinison's going to be in there. And all of a sudden we're like, what? We're in the audience like everybody else.
What happened? Yeah.
First time. And there's no Sam Kinison. It's just the drum beat going for like 30 seconds. We're like, what? And then they explain to us, the record company explains to us, like, you can't have Sam Kinison there swearing. We're like, that was the whole point, you know?
Right.
That's rock and roll, man. That's crazy when you're on a major label. You know, you got to basically kind of bend over and do what they say back in the old days anyways, you know?
Oh, sure. But at least there was some support too that you could get out of the deal.
There was support, but they could take it away too just as fast as they give it to you.
Yes, that's true. That's true.
And you had to pay for it.
Right. Right. But at least you don't have to come up with the money up front. So
right. You get to come up with the money on the back end. It's like, oh, by the way, your album only sold, 500,000 copies. You still owe us $3 million. You won.
Yep.
Like, what?
Exactly.
How did we sign this contract?
Exactly. Yeah. Well, that by then, by the late 80s, that's the music business, was more of a business. It wasn't really a nurturing artistic environment the way it was in the 60s and the 70s. It had already started to change. But at least it helped, at least you get funding. Now what do you do, right?
Yeah, it was like a huge bank, right? Now you don't have a bank. You got to be your own bank. So in a way, it was a blessing and a curse at the same time, but
it's a double-edged sword for sure.
Double-edged sword, but they spent a lot of money on you, stuff that you can't come up with yourself.
Mm-hmm. And sometimes put you in contact with people you might not otherwise be able to be in contact with, on the producer side of things, or a really great engineer in a studio that just really can work those jams.
We were Tom Werman, Tom Werman did Cheap Trick, The Babies, Ted Nugent, Motley Crue. And it's like, hey, we're working with Tom Werman. That was a big deal. But Tom Werman cost $50,000 for 6 weeks.
Right.
Oh, you don't get that nowadays.
Nope. but the first record for you guys must have done well enough that you were allowed a second release. That doesn't always happen either for bands.
A lot of bands didn't get that. So when we finally signed our first record deal, it was for 10 albums.
Wow.
We thought, wow, man, we're going to go on forever. We're going to be like Fleetwood Mac. You know what I mean? In our minds, because it was a 10 album deal.
Right.
But there's a clause in there that says at any point, the record company could say, nah, that's good enough. You know what I mean?
Right.
So, you know, we got 2 albums out of it. You know, it was fun.
And now the second album, you know, probably right at the height of all this grunge stuff,
Yeah.
really kind of taken over. So did that album do well for you guys? Did it kind of get lost in the shuffle of the changing environment?
It sold a third of what the first album did, you know, and when it's funny because when Nirvana came out, I remember we were in the recording studio making Nothing Sacred, and Tom Werman and I were in the booth, and we came out and we were watching the video of Nirvana on MTV. It was late at night, 2, 3 o'clock in the morning.
For the first time that you've heard it?
The first time I'd heard it, yeah.
Yeah. So you're probably like, what is this?
Smells Like Teen Spirit. No, I was like, man, this is cool. This is really cool. And Tom's all, yeah, this is pretty cool.
Right.
Little did we know that was like going to be, you know, that, hey, you guys are a hair band and we're not a hair band. It's like, wait a minute now, your hair is just as long as ours. I don't get it, you know.
Right. It's the flannel shirts. It changes everything, right?
Yeah, hey, you got plaid shirts and you don't. You better plaid shirts or you're just not going to be on MTV. So it kind of sucked because then the record came out, and at the same time that all that that whole Washington, you know, sound or whatever, that coast sound came, and the I call it the depression music, you know, all of a sudden came out and started, you know, killing all the hard rock bands one after another. And it was like a dominoes, man. Every band, it was like Warrant, you know, they just sold 2 million records. Bam, they got dropped. And then the record company, I'm talking to them, I'm thinking, oh, are we going to get dropped too? And they're like, oh, no, you got nothing to worry about. I'm thinking, well, didn't you just, those other guys, Atlanta just dropped Warrant? Well, sure, for sure, we're going to get dropped. We didn't sell 2 million records.
Right.
You know, it's kind of like that kind of thing where you could tell it was in the air, you know?
Sure. Yeah.
I think a lot of that had to do with MTV though, right? If you think about it.
Mm-hmm. Definitely.
MTV basically just did a double switch within, you know, a week. And it was like, if you're this kind of band, we're not going to play you. If you're that kind of band, we'll play you. Even Motley Crue couldn't get played on MTV at the time. Do you remember that?
Mm-hmm.
Like they had a feud with MTV. It's like, what do you mean? We sold 5 million records. It doesn't matter to us. You know?
You're yesterday's news now, boys.
Exactly. Now we're going to go this way. And if you don't get on the, you know, even if you do try to get on the train, we're going to get you off because, you know, you're not going to conform with what we want. You know what I mean? Right. I think MTV really was great at the beginning, but they really screwed everything up, man, towards the end, you know, when they started going with all that friggin', what do you even call it? You know, non-music.
Right. I mean, yeah. I don't know what, yeah. I mean, is it
nothing to do with music?
And when you think of the period of time when they were truly music TV,
yeah,
it was really only well, I guess maybe 9 years or so they did.
Yeah, it was a short span. Think about it.
Really changed. Yeah. Yeah.
They got into that reality TV show shit. They just, you know, just what's the point of calling yourself MTV? Why don't you call RTV, reality TV, whatever?
Right.
You know?
Yeah.
That was a man.
Yeah. But it was for their time, for the period in the 80s where MTV was everything with Headbangers Ball and everything. I mean, it definitely also really did help a lot of bands. I was a DJ on a radio station at that time, and I grew up always thinking the radio was super important because that's where I learned about all my music as I was growing up. But then it's like that came in, it's like, wow, I almost think while radio at that point still was kind of relevant, MTV even kind of changed the radio importance.
And they shoved it down your throat too, like video killed the radio.
Radio star. Yep.
Yeah, you're gonna take my job away. That's not fair.
Yep. So yeah, it was pretty mind blowing to me how big that became. And then, like I say, but I do think, especially this genre of music, it really did help a lot too for a period of time until the switch got turned off. But maybe that's just kind of a normal cycle too, though. I mean, every time there's some decade goes by, it's a different sound. If you think about it, at some point Frank Sinatra was huge, and then at some point it's Elvis Presley, and Sinatra is not relevant now, and things like that. So it's kind of always been there to some degree.
Yeah, I know.
I don't know why mentally as a rocker, I never thought should be the same for rock, but when you think about it.
Yeah, at that time, you're thinking like, what? This can't go away. You're thinking you're stuck in this box forever, but you're right. Music changes about every 5 years into something different, morphs into something different.
Right. And then there's comebacks, like I feel that I started doing this podcast in 2017 and started paying attention to not only bands like you and other bands that have been around for a lot of my life, but also looking at and listening to brand spanking new bands that maybe just started in 2016 or whatever it might have been. And when I listen to what people are creating, a lot of it's going back to that guitar, bass, drums driven sound that had been missing for a long time. So I feel like right now there's a bit of a resurgence of was happening in the 80s. So I think that's the other thing. It's all secular too. It goes out, it goes in, it goes in.
Yeah. Like our drummer, our new drummer, he's 23 years old.
Mm-hmm.
And if you talk to him, he's an old soul. You would think that he'd been playing just as long as we have. He knows everything about Deep Purple and, any band you could think of in the 70s, 80s, or whatever. He knows everything, whoever you could say, he knows. Somehow he's only 23 years old.
Right.
So I kind of think of it as like a few years ago, I went into like this blues phase, right? For about 5 years, man, all I do was play blues, and I play slide guitar, and I, went into all the Elmore James and the Sun House. I went into that phase, right? So I think maybe younger kids, they go into the hard rock phase now because they're sick and tired of listening to the same old. I mean, who do they got as a band is like a gang, right?
Mm-hmm.
It's like a gang. What gangs do they have the last 10 years, 20 years? Justin Bieber? They don't have any gangs. They don't have any powerful images. You know what I mean? Of rock and roll, of what it is to be 5 guys or 4 guys in a band and make this sound and create this universe of sound. Say, here's where we stand. We stand over here,
And that group of guys being single-minded too, in the camaraderie. You don't see a lot of that either, where everybody's got the same vision for where they want to go.
So when these young kids, even with TikTok and Instagram and stuff like that, they run across this stuff, because I'm hearing it from my sons and their friends and stuff. They're like, wow, you guys are badass, Dad. I'm like, really? Cool. You know what I mean? Because they're like, how come we didn't grow up with this stuff? They almost feel like they've been robbed. They're in their 20s, right? They're like, what? We've been robbed. We've been listening to, whatever, Britney Spears.
Right.
You know what I mean? Where was our dudes that hammered? You know what I mean?
Yeah. Yeah.
I really feel like there's a resurgence of hard rock and roll that's just, it's never really left, but at the same time, like you said, it's peaks and valleys, right?
Mm-hmm.
Now we got a little bit of resurgence, I think,
Yeah, which makes me so happy. I've said this in other chats I've had with other musicians, but it bears repeating because it just does make me so happy, because there was such a period of time, what felt like a long period of time, where I thought, boy, this kind of music that I absolutely love and am passionate about, it's going to die with my generation. That's it. It's never going to exist. And I feel bad for future generations that they don't get to feel what I feel from this music. But then I think, but I guess that's normal too, because my mom was a diehard Count Basie and
Yeah.
Frank Sinatra, which I appreciate now, but I didn't appreciate it when I was young.
Yeah.
And so it kind of went away for her as well. She probably felt the same way, I often think, but I did feel that way. And then to see now that real instruments and real musicians are being embraced again and being practiced by 23-year-olds, just makes me just warms my heart, because nothing can replace, no computer, no algorithm, no AI, nothing can replace the human feeling that comes through a real instrument, because that's what always makes music so unique, is that person's soul is coming out through the instrument they're playing. You don't get that with a synthesized, computerized instrument. It's got to be a real instrument for that kind of emotion and feeling to come through. And that's what is the best experience, the best part of music is how it makes you feel emotionally, I think.
Yeah, I agree 100%, man. It's just, music just moves up and down in different phases. And I think I was talking to you earlier about like how lately I've been listening to like, Bob Dylan and, just Simon and Garfunkel and Neil Young. Like, I mean, that's great music. It has nothing to do with Babylon A.D.
Right.
I love listening to that stuff. And I remember hearing it when I was like a little kid,
Yep.
Why am I listening? If Bob Dylan came out with a new album right now today, I'd probably go buy it or listen to it.
Right.
I told you I just bought the Stones album the other day. I mean, how old are the Stones? 75, 80-year-old guys, right?
Mick is 80. Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, but you know what? That album kicks ass.
Yeah, it's really good.
And they've got nothing to prove. They got nothing to prove, right? They don't even have to make another album.
No. Same with the previous album. I thought the same thing. They didn't.
Somehow they got it. They're musicians, man. Somehow they still have the engine going. Like, hey, man, let's make something new. They're like, something new? Shit, man, we've been around for 40 freaking years, but they still do it.
Yep.
That's kind of what I think that Babylon A.D. and a lot of bands are about. Just like we just gotta, it's in your blood, man. So you just got to keep going.
Right.
You could say it doesn't make sense to keep going, but if you don't, then you're just going to wither away and die. Get busy trying, right?
Well, and that's what I think is great for you too, because you and Ron, I believe, have been there the whole time.
Yeah.
Right. You did have a little hiatus, but for the most part, you guys have been cranking it out since the 80s, and you were probably together. I don't know if this is correct for you and Ron, but I think you were together before even band became Babylon A.D., right? Because you guys all hook up in high school or something.
The band originally was called the Persuaders.
Mm-hmm.
And we moved down to LA, and we first got a record deal. We found out that there was another band called the Persuaders, and we didn't know it. And the funny thing is when I was a kid, I loved the song. It's a thin line between love and hate. I loved that song when I was a kid. Well, it was done by a band called the Persuaders, And so the record company's like, hey, you can't be called the Persuaders. What do you mean there's a band called the Persuaders? So it was like, wow, I loved that song when I was a kid. I didn't know. So we changed our name to Babylon A.D. And
what made you add the A.D. as opposed to just Babylon?
So it was Babylon for about maybe 2 months. And then some band, I can't remember, out of Kentucky or something like it, sued us, right?
Oh, they were using that name?
Yeah, they were using that name, Babylon. So they sued us. And we had to settle out of court, believe it. I mean, that was our first idea about the music business. Like, you mean to tell me that there's a band, it's a cover band too.
Oh my gosh.
And they sued us because they found out a band, we got a deal called Babylon. They sued us. We had to pay them like $5,000 and do something with the name. So we said, okay, Babylon A.D.
Right.
So yeah, that's how that came about. It was crazy.
Yeah.
I'll tell you into how the music business really works.
I did always wonder that. And then what was it? Was it Faster Pussycat? Somebody had a song, Babylon, around that time too. I think it was Faster Pussycat. So I always wondered too, is it because of that song title that you added the AD?
Band.
Gotcha. Gotcha. Well, let's go back to Rome Wasn't Built in a Day, because I think you guys put together 11 great songs here. On this past Saturday's music show, I added Pain, because when I listen to albums for the first time, I always kind of, my first listen, like Wrecking Machine, of course, was a single released ahead of the album, so I already had that in my head. But then when the record comes out, I listen to it through one time, and then I pick like what's my first early favorite, and then after several repeated listenings, that shifts a lot of times, or sometimes the same song remains my favorite always. But with my first listen to the full record, Pain stood out to me as my favorite at that. And that's all. I haven't gotten a chance to go back for my second full uninterrupted listen yet. So I've only had the one full uninterrupted listen. But Pain definitely stood out to me. So I did add that to this last Saturday show. And I want to talk to you about that song because I thought it seemed like kind of a serious song, but I also thought your vocal performance was really good on that song.
Thank you. Well, that song actually was written about, my wife has had a rare, she has a rare disease that just came upon her about maybe a year ago. My cousin, two cousins, and my best friend, they all got cancer in the last year. And for some reason, when John Matthews played me the riff of the thing, I mean, all I could think is Pain. All I heard in my head was what basically
everybody around you.
Yes. And I wanted to kind of give them a voice. Pain is a pitch to pay. You know what I mean? You got to suck it up because everybody's telling me, man, I'm going to make it. There was nobody, everyone that, my family, my friends that have this rare disease and have cancer, we're all like, I'm gonna fight through this. I'm gonna fight through this. So that's how this song came about. Really, was the feeling of I'm gonna persevere and make it. You know what I mean? No matter what, I'm gonna do it, man. I know I'm in a lot of pain, but I'm gonna get out of this.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and that's probably subconsciously why it resonated with me so much too, because my mom's been gone for a long time now, but I went through cancer with her. She had gotten cancer, and we had a lot of roller coaster ride for 4 years that disease before I took her, and maybe that's part of why I found that song so meaningful to me. I don't know, because
you felt it, right? You felt pain.
Yeah. And but she was the same way. I'm going to fight it and go. And then even when it was at the end where it's like there's nothing more that can be done, she's like, well, all right. I said I'd always go out kicking and screaming. So I guess I've done all the kicking and screaming I can do now, or whatever. Yeah. But given the voice, like you said, I appreciate that thought that because people don't always get that, right? So. That's pretty cool. So anyway, yes, I love that song. And then probably the next one that is probably going to be my next favorite, I think, and I'll have to let you know after I give this album a full listen again, but probably is Looking for a Heartbeat. I thought that song was I liked the structure. I thought it was pretty cool.
Yeah, that song was actually one of the very first songs we wrote, and we wrote that song about 6 years ago.
Okay.
Playing it in concert when we play shows just to test it out, and it always worked really well. And it kind of it's kind of like a takeoff of one of our songs on the first album called "Shot of Love." It has the same type of melodic kind of riff. Because Ron writes a lot of those melodic kind of riffy kind of things, So it kind of reminded me of that, and it's very melodic. And I try to tell those guys, I go, this song is very commercial. It almost sounds like Journey and Boston and Babylon A.D. got together in a house, because it's got a lot of melody to it,
Right.
And that has been considered to being a single, but we're not sure yet because we've got some pretty good songs on this album. So we're not
You do.
sure if that's going to be the second or third. Well, the second single is going to be Rome Wasn't Built in a Day, which comes out in a few days.
Makes sense. Title track.
Yep, the title track. That's right. We've got a video already shot for that and just came out on YouTube and everything like that. Yeah.
Gotcha. Oh, that's out already? The video?
Yeah, we just put it out a couple of days ago.
Oh,
Yeah.
I missed that. I'll have to go back and look for that.
We put the video out. Now the single comes out to radio to you, I think Wednesday.
Gotcha. All right. Well, I look forward. I mean, I have the album already, but I'll look forward to checking out the video though.
Yeah.
Well, that's cool. So not that you ever can, of course, but do you have a favorite song from this record? The one that you feel is maybe most indicative of where you're at as musicians in 2024?
Well, it's like every song, when you write a song, especially like the lyrics and the melodies and things, it's like your child. It's like this.
That's why I understand that.
Girl that goes out in the world, you love them all,
Right.
Some of them are like, yeah, you little stupid kid, get over here, Another one's like, oh man, I really like you, but you're kind of messy, It's hard to say, but the one right now, I could honestly say that's closest to my heart because of the type of whatever human being I am, I guess. And the one that I thought that when I was writing the lyrics I'm always thinking about lyrics,
Mm-hmm.
So the one that I think is my deepest lyrics and the one that means the most to me is a song called Face of God. I'm a Christian and I just believe that somehow God has always played a part in my life and others around me. My wife's and people around me always say, why does this stuff happen to you? Blah, blah, blah. And I always say, I just have faith. I don't ever worry about, knock on wood, but I don't ever worry about money, jobs, anything. I just leave it in his hands and always, it's like a miracle. I swear to God, man. It always works out in the end.
Mm-hmm.
And I feel that if everyone just give themselves up to a higher being, if they want to say, spiritual being or whatever, in my case is Jesus Christ. But if they give themselves into like letting it just happen, it'll happen. Because from where I came from when I was a kid, a young boy growing up in Hayward, right outside of Oakland, single parent. My mom was 16 years old when she had me. Growing up on welfare, food stamps, stuff like that, pretty much she went to school at night and I watched myself and my sister when we were 5 or 6 years old.
Wow. Wow.
So, every time I think about stuff, I just think about the power of God because of my grandmother and my mother instilled in me that no matter what, God loves you and things will happen for you if you just believe that it will happen.
Right.
And it is so weird because it has happened.
Mm-hmm.
Everything my whole life has always just flowed. And I've never really had to, I've had to worry about stuff, of course, like everybody else, but I just succumb to just go, I'm just going to put it in God's hand.
Right.
And in the end, it always works out. It's crazy.
Yeah. No, I'm there with you. I believe that too. I've seen it many times in my own life. And I always think of that adage of, when you think you're making plans, God laughs, or something along those lines. I forget exactly how that adage goes, but the meaning part of it, of course, means we're not really in control, and I think that's true, and I do agree. I also came up with a single mom and food stamps and poverty, just like you, but my mom always, number one, I always knew she loved me. She never didn't show that. And number two, she just prayed all the time. And somehow we made it through as well, So
our whole family was like that. My cousins, everybody, we all lived in a big giant house together with one bathroom. And my grandmother would make like a pot of spaghetti and somehow it'd feed like 6 kids and 2 aunts and uncles. Like, what the heck? She just, God will provide,
Yep.
know? So
Yep.
that's the thought I always had. Like, I don't have to worry about nothing, man. All I have to do is ask God and he'll help me.
Right.
You know?
I mean, there may be times, I'm sure, probably happened to you. I know it's happened to me. Maybe times where you start thinking like, is this really going to get better? But you just got to keep the faith,
That's
and
right. That's
usually
when you
if you
test it.
do,
That's
right,
when you get tested.
right.
That's when you got to
Usually
make
if
your
you do,
moves.
it works
Sometimes you
out.
get tested like, ooh, man, you know,
Right,
and
right.
you stay right.
No, I think you're right. Well, maybe that's the song then, now that we've talked about that and how deeply meaningful it is for you, because as when we wrap things up, I always like to add a song from that person's new output. In this case, Babylon A.D. Rome wasn't built in a day. So I was going to ask you to pick a song to add to the end of this interview. I think without asking, I think we just came up with it. What do you think? You think that'd be a good one? All right.
Yeah.
Let me write this down so that when I put this together, I'll already know that that's what we're doing. But before we do wrap up, though, too, I did want to ask, as I usually do, and for a couple of years, because of the crazy times we've had in the 2020s, the answer has been who knows, but I think now we know. And that is any live dates coming up where you're going to be able to go out and support this record.
Yeah, we've got tons of live dates coming up. Our first show actually is this coming up Friday on June 7th over at the Whiskey in Hollywood.
Awesome.
And that's a fun place to play because it's like hollowed ground. You know, you think of Jim Morrison and you know everybody that's played there. You know, I love playing that place. And then we've got several dates in Salt Lake City, Denver, Texas, Florida. We're doing Monsters of the Mountain in Tennessee, Gatlinburg. That's going to be a fun
big event. Yeah.
Aldo Nova. Yeah. And we've got some dates in Europe coming up. So yeah, the band's going to be pretty busy this year. You know,
Awesome.
really, yeah, it's pretty cool.
Well, that's great to hear because sometimes being able
And
to
we're
go.
going to be playing the boardwalk in around Sacramento.
You mentioned that before we started, so I believe you said August 17th.
I think that's the day. Yeah.
So hopefully, all you local Sacramentans, if that's the right term, because obviously I'm still only 3 years living in Sacramento area, but get out there. Boardwalk, I'm sure everybody that listens to the show that is into the music scene knows the place. I've even been there a few times in the short time I've been here. So yeah, that's going to be great. So August 17th, guess you guys. But obviously, I know you've got social media for Babylon AD, and do you have a website as well?
Yeah, we've got the typical Facebook, babylonad.com, where we interact with a lot of our fans and things like that. But we've also got a website, babylonadband.com.
And you keep all your itinerary up to date there?
Yeah, we keep everything up to date. Probably about once a week, we throw something up there. And, the press release is going out for our second single, Rome Wasn't Built in a Day, I think Wednesday morning. So most people in radio will get that and the press will get that. And Rome Wasn't Built in a Day. It's going to be our second single. Wrecking Machine did great. It went to number 2 rock radio for a week,
Awesome.
About a month ago, so now we're following up with the second single. Hopefully we'll get just as much traction with that song. Rome Wasn't Built in a Day is a really cool song because it's like very melodic, but hard rock. Kind of it always reminds me of like the Babies meets the Scorpions. It's kind of like that.
I think you may have hit that. Yeah, I mean, I got to think about that analogy a little bit, but I think
it's like Midnight Rendezvous meets like Love Drive or something.
Right. That's funny. Yeah, that's pretty good.
Yeah.
Well, that's cool. Now, all you guys checking this out, Derek and I are together on Monday, but this interview I probably won't get it out until Thursday. So when this comes out, Rome Wasn't Built in a Day should be the brand new single.
Brand spanking new. That's right.
That'll be out there. So maybe I need to add 2 songs then. Maybe we need to go for the Meaningful Face of God and feature the brand new single.
That sounds like a perfect idea to me. You're
All right. So we're going to do that, you guys. So Derek and I are going to quit talking now. And then we're just going to let the music do the talking. So Derek, thank you for coming by Radio Bypass. Everybody, Derek Davis, Babylon A.D., brand new album. Rome wasn't built in a day. Brand new single released just before we released this interview. And stick around now for two great songs. Even though Rome wasn't built in a day is the new single, we're going to start with Face of God, though, just because of the conversation you just heard Derek and I have revolving around that song. Awesome. Make sure you check out BabylonADBand.com. Go see these guys live this year. And glad you're back with a new record, man. It's good to talk to you.
Yeah, great.
Everybody, here it comes. Face of God, Babylon A.D.
Some say broken hearts come easy, and life's a battle for the soul. And never make the false gods angry, or you could wind up being stoned. Your faith in something